This is Toronto Today with Greg Brady.
Toronto's news, today's talk.
640 Toronto.
Somebody who's a big fan of Open Society is joining us right now. He's Anthony Furey, and he's running for mayor of Toronto. It's great to have you in.
Great to be back, sir.
The last time we spoke to you, you were in person, and you had talked about the Metro links, right, and potentially launching legal action against them if you're mayor.
How we got to get noisy here. These delays, Greg,
Right.
we're always hearing about. We can't take it sitting down anymore. We can't just shrug it off. We got to be a strong voice at the table saying, come on, guys, this ain't acceptable. We got to make sure the Ontario line doesn't have the same challenges that Eglinton Crosstown did.
And when you were in, soon afterwards, noted author, university professor Jordan Peterson gave you an endorsement.
You got it.
Give us sort of the process of that happening and how that sort of relationship and connection manifests itself.
We were talking, and he said, I think you'd make a great mayor.
There's more to it than that. It's a longer conversation. I know you. I don't believe that's a 2-sentence conversation.
Well, if you want to see a much longer...
What are the images that he cares about in Toronto that he thinks you could help basically his home city with?
Well, we both talked about how much we love this city, and one of the things, Greg, that I have been saying is that if you want to fall in love with Toronto all over again, go run for mayor, because it is such an experience to go and just meet with people from all corners of the city, which I was always already doing for my job in media, but it's supercharged now, and this city is just full of so many amazing people, amazing places, and Peterson agreed with me that Toronto's an amazing place and it's a city worth fighting for. One of the things interesting about him is he really wanted to talk about beautification of Toronto and vibrancy, because he's traveling the world. This is a guy who's going to sold-out audiences all across the world, really, and people who travel a lot compare Toronto to different cities a lot. Why can't we have this? Why can't we have that? So he really wants to see beautification issues of this city, and I think he and I will be making a bit of a joint announcement later on down in the campaign, but it really is about love of Toronto and belief in Toronto's potential. And as I say, it's a city worth fighting for, and that's what I'm doing as the candidate who's the outsider here. I didn't break it. I'm the one who can fix it.
So Peterson polarizes, but everybody polarizes. You do, I do. Nobody agrees.
Everyone loves you, Greg. Come on.
Nobody agrees on 100% of anything, and that's the great thing. I've heard candidates say one of the best things going to the door is finding somebody that disagrees with something and having a reasonable conversation. We used to be able to have reasonable conversations without somebody saying, I'm not sure about your point, as opposed to, I disagree with your point. I disagree with you. I don't like you, and I don't think you should get to make any more points from now on. And that happens on the right, and that happens on the left. Yeah,
and you know what? Going door to door, going to all the events in Toronto. I'm proud to be someone who's taken strong positions over the years in my career, but I'm what you'd call a happy warrior. I get along with everyone, and when we're really sitting down and making these meaningful human connections, I mean, safe streets, looking after our kids, our families, making sure there aren't needles in our parks, affordability, can't bring in any new taxes that'll harm low-income folks, that'll disincentivize business. That's common cause. Doesn't matter whether you're left, right, center. We can all agree that we got to get behind that stuff, and that's why I'm the guy to do this, Greg.
Peterson comes with people. Obviously, you think there's more positives than negatives. Do you think you'll have more people say, I'm going to listen, I'm going to pay attention? Do you think you have some people that are like, that's not an endorsement that I'd get behind? This will be more positive than negative, or you wouldn't be pleased it was happening?
I'm honored to be endorsed by Dr. Jordan Peterson, honored to be endorsed by Mark McEwen, by Dr. Wei Dong Pei, prominent North York community leader, trustee, honored to be endorsed by former Liberal MP Dennis Mills, big businessman, community leader. And lots more to come, my friend.
I want to talk about the TDSB, but we got about 3 minutes here in this segment. So I think we can dive pretty deeply into the issues and what got everybody all fired up over the last day and a half. But let me ask you about the media. You've worked in mainstream media with the Toronto Sun. True North, I think we'd argue, is not mainstream. It's different, right? It's not. How would you describe it? It's not what we describe as the MSM. Is that fair to say?
You know, it's funny.
Not conventional?
It's funny you bring up schools, because I said when I was leading the newsroom there that school board issues is one thing that traditional media, just through resources, hasn't covered that much anymore. Parents want to know what's going on at schools, and I said, guys, we got to cover this stuff. So they're covering stuff that I think is terrain that needs to be focused on more. Quite frankly, that's what I'm doing on the campaign right now as well, Greg. There are a lot of issues that we haven't been talking about that have gotten a bit challenging in recent years, and I'm going to fight for residents on those issues.
I've been saying for a while, I'm not sure we should have the school board trustees elected the same night we elect city councilors and mayors, because it just doesn't get the same attention. I wish it had its own spotlight. I don't know that in if that enhances voters' knowledge. I don't know if that increases voting numbers, but I think we'd be able to dive into the issues more, whereas it's all mayor, counselor, and they don't get the attention.
It's a great point. And I'll tell you, going across the city, chatting with people, invariably I say, what are your issues? People bring up the school system. I say, look, I'm not running to be trustee or education minister, but I can be your voice. I can advocate for parents. And Greg, what parents want to see now is a focus on academic excellence and school safety. None of this, whatever you want to call it, woke nonsense. The fact they're saying, oh, you can't put up a Mother's Day billboard. You made some great statements on that. The fact they're sending surveys home to grade 2s and grade 3s asking, are you non-binary? Parents of all walks of life, all political backgrounds, just say, come on, guys, enough with that. You've lost your way. And as mayor of Toronto, I will stand up for parents' voices, relay those concerns to the trustees, the director of education, and the provincial minister of education. I will be their advocate.
Do you think there's an angle where, or a time that's going to come where the education minister is going to look at school boards and say, what are we doing? Either an amalgamation, I wouldn't call it an elimination, but I keep thinking that that's coming. And I think if you lose someone like me, I'd consider myself a strong, centrist, up-the-middle person. If you lose me and I go, hey, school boards aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, so I'm not going to go to the wall to save them. You lose me, you're going to lose a lot of other people who are really frustrated. Their effectiveness should be they step in, they make sure that everybody's getting the same at-bats. They step in, they make sure there isn't inequality in the school, that there aren't bad teachers. But they've obviously stepped into terrain all over the place that parents, I think, not universally, because nothing is, that parents say, that's not your business now by this point.
And they're not polling on school issues when it comes to mayoral issues, but I actually think it's one of the big sleeper issues of the campaign, even though, of course, the mayor doesn't manage it. It's a provincial issue. That's where people's concerns are. And Greg, parents are getting in the game more. They are making their voices heard. Like I said, Dr. Pay, trustee endorsing me. I think he's a real hero standing up on these issues, being an outsider perspective to advocate for parents. I will advocate for parents' rights concerns in the school system, wanting school safety. We've got to deal with that issue a whole lot more. And then, of course, safety on our streets. One of the reasons, Greg, I want to tackle the drug crisis, phase out injection sites, is because people don't want their kids walking on the streets anymore, taking the subway alone anymore, because they think someone in a drug-induced psychosis might attack them. And that's what we've been seeing.
But can I make the case that a mayor, John Tory was mayor for 8.5 years and really didn't dig in on the TDSB and say, this is what you should be doing, this is what you should not be doing. I know you'll say to the TDSB, I do believe that you'll be in their grill a little bit going, this is your mandate, why aren't you following it? But ultimately, you have to pivot to the province and put the pressure on them, don't you?
The biggest difference between me and everyone else running for mayor and all these incumbent politicians, I'm not afraid to make noise, Greg. I'm not afraid to do the thing that's standing up for regular folks, the silent majority, even if they say a few mean things about me in the newspapers, even if a few people show up at City Hall kicking and screaming with placards with rude names about me. Most politicians cave to that stuff. I won't cave to that stuff. I'll plant my feet firm down and I'll stand up for what's right, and I'll advocate for the residents of Toronto.
But you do have to pivot to the province, right? This is education's a provincial
and I'll
jurisdiction.
Work with them. You've got it.
So what can mayors do besides ask and plead? They can't. There's nothing tangible a mayor could do to change what the TDSB is or their makeup or their mandate.
So goes Toronto. So goes the nation. I will stand up there.
Well,
I will use
slogan.
the megaphone and I will make things happen. Because what I'm doing right now is seeking a mandate from people all across Toronto. What are the issues that matter to you? How can Mayor Anthony Furey fight for you? And people are going to hear that. If I get a clear mandate, there you go.
It's with Anthony Furey, who's running for mayor. What's that website? People can find out more about you if you're a complete stranger to them.
Furey.ca, Furey.ca. Thanks, sir.
Sure. Happy to, and we'll get it in again for the end of the show. I feel like come hell or high water. What do you think of the new passports?
Terry Fox should be on them.
Yes.
Canadian hero.
That was kind of quiet that he's not. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the bottom line, and this is what we're seeing really all across politics, is that our similarities matter more than our differences, and people from all walks of life across the city tell me we want to come together on our shared concerns. So anything that has a hint of divisiveness, let's get rid of this. Whatever you want to call it, woke nonsense, whatever the term is, every Canadian of all backgrounds is happy to cheer for Terry Fox. They know he's a great Canadian hero.
Mm-hmm. You and I grew up, and censorship was about things on the right. There was this sense in the States, right, that Jerry Falwell's the moral majority. You can't buy that Prince album. We can't play that song on the radio. We can't have nudity on television before a certain time of night. And it feels like it's sort of shifted a little bit. I think those parameters are. Our parents, when we were talking about what should be in schools, Anthony, our parents had those same questions about, well, what's going too far for sex education? There should be some. And the concept was, what if nobody's getting told anything at home? And I'm like, my dad didn't tell me a damn thing, and I didn't remember anything from school, so you kind of figure it out on your own. But there is that sort of line that we're seeing move in a different way, and some of it is taking offense. And even with this Q junior school, I look and I say, we got to get back to just, if it offends me, say so. But I'm not going to say, hey, this might offend some people, or this might offend others. I'm not offended by it, but some people might, so I'm going to really dig in and get involved here. That's part of the online discourse that I wish we could send the internet to another planet, because I think it created it.
I'm not intimidated by the online discourse because I know that the regular folks, the silent majority, have not been heard on these issues. I'm going to be their advocate, even if people say mean things about me. And that's what's happening on the campaign trail. So with this, not that they're saying mean things about me, what's happening is they want me to stand up for these issues. And that's what I'm doing. So what's going on with the Mother's Day thing? Everybody knows this is nonsense, but the political class,
cave?
the leaders... Well,
what's the benefit in caving?
Because people just don't like to take the heat. And the bottom line is, I'll take the heat when it comes to standing up for people. Taking down the Mother's Day sign was wrong. It's upset parents of all backgrounds. The bike lane issue, nobody wants to say it because the bike lobby is so loud and vocal, but the vast majority of people say we've gone too far on these bike lanes. That's why I'm saying Mayor Furey will deal with them. No more bike lanes on major roads. Some of them we're going to have to rip up. When it comes to saying many other issues, dealing with the law and order on our streets, I never once, Greg, never once bowed with the radicals when it came to their anti-police agenda. I never threw the police under the bus. All the other major candidates did. All of them. And I have no problem standing strong on these issues. And that's what I'm going to do.
Mark Saunders didn't, but I don't think Mark Saunders has thrown his own police force under the bus.
Well, I think when you have 86% of police union members voting non-confidence in him, when there's an exodus of officers when he created the situation we're dealing with right now in law and order.
Were you open-minded about safe injection sites originally? This is about saving lives in the short term, making sure there aren't bad supplies. Because I think I was open-minded. The data absolutely tells me that we cannot do this without some form of mandated treatment. We cannot do this without having people having come back and forth, and here's what you've got around the area. You got bad people looking to assault other people. You've got people potentially looking to push women who are desperate for money into terrible things, whether it's prostitution or human trafficking. Like, these are big words, but this stuff, I'd love to use another word, is happening. I hear from parents who have kids who can't get out of this cycle of going over and over and over again. Were you open-minded about it at the start?
I was initially. Now we have the evidence, and the status quo on this issue is a failure. It's been 20 years. The more injection sites Canada has, the more overdose deaths we have, the more disorder on our streets. Greg, Toronto is at a turning point right now, and as mayor of Toronto, I will make sure we don't move one step further to being like Vancouver, Seattle, San Francisco. The pictures, the videos we're seeing from those cities, just awful. So many of the random attacks on our street, Greg, on our public transit relate to the drug crisis. I have said no new injection sites. They're planning a number to bring in here in the coming months, in the next couple of years. That won't happen under my watch as mayor. Instead, we'll pause, time out, take the resources already allocated to those, flip them into treatment centers, because a compassionate society doesn't keep people on drugs, it gets them off of drugs. It'll help them, and it'll help our families be safe. And when it comes to involuntary treatment, in the most severe cases, Greg, those people roaming the streets where you look at the person, you go, that person's imminently about to attack someone, or they're imminently about to get themselves killed jumping into traffic. Clearly, those folks, we have provincial laws and processes already in place where we can say, all right, we're going to have to put you in treatment here.
Well, this is anecdotal, but the first time ever, there's a Shoppers Drug Mart about 5 minutes from my house. And now and then you'll get somebody that will ask you for change, and that's fine. And I never have felt threatened before. Sure. But 2 weeks ago, about 4 p.m, there's a guy where there's those little shoppers carts, shopping carts that you and I, when we're older, we're going to need because our knees will be bad and we'll have to lean in on getting our medications. He's passed out on the shopping carts. Guy is passed out. He's clearly been outside a while. Looks like he's got a sunburned face. And I'm thinking, for all the people that are advocating for us to leave that person alone, not take him somewhere, not help him, not find out who he is, where he comes from and get treatment. They're not putting them in, those advocates aren't putting that guy in their basement tonight. And those guys aren't taking him into their home for a cup of soup to try and sober him up. They're just saying, just leave him. He's a human being. He gets his level of independence. And I think that's where we've got to move on this and say, not only should we help him, but we shouldn't have to worry about our sons and daughters someday. Here I go, moral majority. Our sons and daughters dodging these guys like they're obstacles on the street when they want to go into Shoppers Drug Mart. I know our 80-year-old parents someday shouldn't be dodging these people either.
And you got it. The parents of addicts, former addicts, they all tell me, wouldn't you want to be put into treatment if this was you, if this was a loved one? You bet. And I'm the only candidate who said I'm going to phase out the drug injection sites. We're going to be laser focused on treatment instead, working with the province, working with our partners. What do you want the
province to do, though? What can the province do, and what are they not? They're not doing stuff right now they should be doing, clearly.
Yeah, right now we got to come together, the province, police, Toronto Public Health, the health networks, and say, we're going to focus on treatment. Right now, you can have an interaction with an addict where they're getting their needles, they're getting their drugs, they're going to hospital for overdose, and not once does someone even mention the word treatment.
No.
We got to go in a completely different direction. As Mayor of Toronto, I, Anthony Furey, will do just that. That is one of the prime ways we can clean up our downtown, clean up our transit, deal with the drug crisis.
This is a big macro question, but I got 90 seconds for it. Are you getting the coverage that you thought you'd get? You enter this race and you know you're going against decade-long city councilors and you're going against people that have had but you've had a prominent platform in a major newspaper for a long time, and now you're on a growing website. Are you getting the coverage that you thought you would? Did you worry you wouldn't?
Sure. I'm getting coverage everywhere. So thank you very much for the opportunity today, Greg. And people can go to the website, furey.ca. And it's great to be able to give those press conferences, talk about the issues that I am passionate about. More people joining the team every day. Anyone listening want to come on board, we would love to have you. And the bottom line is that I'm offering a fresh voice, a fresh perspective. The people who broke it are not the people to fix it. And every other candidate has played a role in getting Toronto to this place of decline it is now at. I love this city, Greg. It is a city worth fighting for. I've got 3 young children here. I'm doing this to fight for them. I'm doing this to stand up for all Toronto families. I know what it's like to scan the playground for needles and say, oh, sorry, kids, we got to head on from this park. We can't stay here anymore. Those sort of things that are happening to Toronto families, the affordability issues they're dealing with, I know what that's like. I know it's not acceptable, and I'm going to stand up to make Toronto safer, more affordable for everyone. I love this city.
He is Anthony Furey. By the way, the Leafs are 1-0 on nights when you're at a candidate's debate. So you're going to have to find one tomorrow night. You may have to find a soapbox and just start shouting into the distance and debate with somebody walking by.
You promised me another website plug, furey.ca.
I just Furey.ca. 1 minute and a half ago. Don't go to the wrong place. It's not a .co.uk.
You got it.
You never know where you'll end up if you go to a .co.uk. Anthony Furey is running for mayor. He wants your vote June 26th.